It's not that I'm being purposely silent. And you gotta love the image. All right, my buddy Ben Scott did this for me. Ben Scott of NYCWeatherNow.com and the weather app, the Angry Weatherman, which you can download on Google Play. For those of you with Android devices, not yet available for iPhones. That's an awful big cup of coffee. And Bill Uber, I think you. Digital publishers, oops. Website owners, and content creators often configure their layouts. There we go. I run the chat. I run the live stream on my phone on the side, so this way I can see you guys on the chat. So good morning, everybody. Welcome to our Sunday morning show, Coffee with Cioffi, that we started up about 3 weeks or so ago. Seemed to work really well to get some weather done on a Sunday morning, and I've got my cup right here, and he's got his cup right there. That's an awful big cup. I'm drinking it out of my Four Easter mug. So anyway, I woke up this morning to a very interesting message from my pal Joe Arabia, who was in the Patchogue, or was in the Patchogue Fire Department. I think retired now. Telling me about a nice surprise that showed up on the radar this morning, and I kind of peered up. This was a little bit before 7, and I sort of, looked up. The window is right over the my headboard, and I noticed outside it was pretty dark. It was kind of cloudy. I thought, okay. And then I looked really close and strained my eyes and saw, is that snowflake going by? And sure enough, we had some ocean effect snow happening here this morning. It was nothing exciting, but you did see some nice big flakes go by. And at one point, when I looked out to the east side of my house, it was actually coming down rather steadily. So again, a nice surprise, and considering that we had the cold air, the cold high to the north. I mean, really impressive in terms of some of the temperatures that it produced during the overnight and morning hours. It brought down teens and 20s pretty far down to the south. We're going to take a look at some of those low temperatures that are showing up out there. So I'm also been trying to get this issue that I've been having with the sound. Uh, and yeah, Timothy, you tell me that's cracking just a little bit. Okay, let me just adjust the mic a little bit here, and hopefully that should take care of it. Just let me know if you guys are are hearing me loud enough, and if there's any kind of crackling noise. One of the problems I'm having here, I don't know, maybe if any of you tech guys, Windows 10, every time I set the audio levels, it turns around and sets them on its own in between using it. I've tried to set it as default and all the rest of it, and nothing seems to work. So if you got any ideas, let me know. Okay, so let's get started here. Big welcome, by the way, to those of you watching on the Meteorologist Joe Cioffi Weather app, and also for those of you that are watching from Facebook. Welcome this morning to, this is a Sunday morning thing that we're doing here, and if you've got the app, you got your notifications, so that all worked out pretty well. So let me bring up my window. Also, on Sunday mornings, I'm a little bit slow on the uptake. I guess most people are, due to the fact that, well, it's Sunday and we just kind of take it a little bit easier and maybe a little less seriously. So just looking at the map here that I pulled up from the Weather Service, I put the winter weather advisories up and the coastal flood warnings that are up for New Jersey and for Long Island. And actually, those coastal flood warnings go all the way down to Delaware and through the Delmarva Peninsula into southeastern Virginia and, of course, into North Carolina, where that's about the only spot where we're actually seeing a little bit of rain activity going on over the Outer Banks. And the advisories that are up for northwest New Jersey, northeastern Pennsylvania, and then up the Hudson Valley to north of I-90 and into Massachusetts and northwest Connecticut. This is all really about the possibility of some freezing drizzle or a little bit of light freezing rain that could occur tonight into tomorrow morning. And look at these lows this morning. I mean, this is really pretty impressive stuff for this time of year. And that's really that high going by to the north. Anytime you get that high pressure cell to go by to the north, you are looking at colder temperatures. Clearly, as you go further north, you're going to see the lower numbers. But sometimes with these highs that come into southeastern Canada and move into New England, you could really get some rather low numbers. And in fact, if you look up, we've got this -2, and this is at Mount Van Hoevenberg, okay, and the -9 is at Saranac Lake. This is probably a setup that if you saw deep in the heart of January or February, where you would see numbers upstate New York and in northern Vermont and New Hampshire in the -20, -30 degree range. So it's very cold air. It also helps that there's a north wind, so that cold air is drawn down to the coastal areas. So we had readings down below freezing across Long Island back to New York City, low 20s, teens. I mean, this is really chilly stuff. And that cold air actually bleeds down pretty far south. You've got this one storm that is sitting off the Carolina coast that is really driving the colder air and pulling it down all the way into Florida, which if these are low temperatures that I've got on the map, not current temperatures. So if you look at these numbers, you're looking at lows that were down in the, now clearly there were colder lows here last week, but this time around, because of the circulation of that storm, you've pulled 50s all the way down into South Florida. I mean, clearly, even down into parts of the Florida Keys, although not quite to Key West, where the low is still just 72. But you're talking Miami lows in the mid 50s, upper 40s and low 50s, moving up the coast toward Fort Pierce and beyond. And on the West Coast, readings down also in the low to mid 50s, 50 at Tampa, 54 at Venice, 51 in Punta Gorda, 54 in Fort Myers. So chilly stuff indeed, making it that far south. And finally, the Floridians were able to break out sweaters and jackets for the first time, at least southern Floridians. Northern Floridians, you've been at it for a couple of times now. For those of you in South Florida, this is probably your first sweater and jacket moment. The threshold is a little lower for pain in those areas. Now, the Weather Service is forecasting ice accumulation, a light ice accumulation for northwest New Jersey, northeastern Pennsylvania, and then on up the Hudson Valley. Everybody's pretty much under 1/10 of an inch. So we're talking about glazing and minor icing that could occur. This is kind of tricky too, because I don't know how much precip you're going to wind up with on the backside of this. If you believe the aggressive GFS, which is usually the NAM, that the NAM was so aggressive with all this rain precip back days ago, and it completely backed off from this. The GFS has been maintaining this idea that this system is going to kind of be sprawling in terms of size, and as a result, you may wind up. And this happens sometimes when you get these types of systems and upper lows that hold together. They kind of expand out a little bit, and you get the western edge of the precip moving, pretty much further west than you would otherwise see in normal situations. So but we're talking light rainfall amounts. If you draw a line up along the Hudson, if you draw a line down the Hudson River to New York City, down the Jersey coast and offshore, from there west, I mean, you're talking about amounts that are well under 1/4 of an inch, and in a lot of places, you go back to Pennsylvania, into Pennsylvania, cut the state in half, and you're really talking about amounts under 1/10 of an inch. Where there might be some larger rainfall amounts here is in southeastern New England, out around the Cape, about an inch or so, Also up in parts of Maine, where you could certainly wind up with 3/4 of an inch to an inch of precip. And with respect to the snow possibilities here, that's the thing with this high. You've got all this low level cold air, which is all fine and dandy. But when it comes to having that colder air aloft in order to get snow to fall, that's a bit of a tougher sell. Now, certainly it was cold enough so that we saw that ocean effect snow that was going on this morning. It ended about 30 minutes ago, by the way, out my door. But upstate New York snow amounts are generally about an inch or less just about everywhere, even going all the way up to the Canadian border. You start to get maybe into a couple of inches as you move across northern New Hampshire and definitely up into northern parts of Maine. But other than that, really, from the standpoint of snow, this is pretty much okay. We're back. You know what? I got to do something really fast so this does not happen again. I lost the signal here briefly for whatever reason.